Hi, everybody, and welcome. It's Friday, so it must be Kinetics USA weekly show, Onwards and Upwards. Everything that a global healthcare worker needs to know about coming to live and work in the United States. I am your host, Tanya Friedman, Chief Executive Officer of Kinetics USA, and I am joined today by our esteemed panel, Chris Musello. Welcome, Chris.
Morning. How is everybody doing?
Good, good. And I think we have Mike Hammond who will be joining us shortly.
Yeah,
So,
Mike sent an email. I think he's having just a wee bit of problem getting in on the event.
yeah. So we will hopefully have him join us in a few minutes. If you are joining us today, the topic is our monthly immigration Q&A. This is a session that I know nurses and healthcare workers all over the world wait for every single month. I literally have in front of me, everybody, pages and pages of questions from nurses, from med techs, from nurse aides, from healthcare workers all around the world. So I'm going to get started right away, Chris. So you are in the hot seat today.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so if you are joining us now, please put your questions into the chat. Also put your name, where you are watching from. It's so fun to see everybody watching from all around the world. Immigration is a complicated topic, and it's really important to understand this process because it's very exciting, but very long, frustrating, overwhelming. Okay, so we've got Radhika who's saying hi. Wantakorn who's saying hi. Radhika is saying, please answer my question. Radhika, I will do my best to answer your question and pose it to Chris and to Mike when he joins. And Bashar has a question, Chris. Bashar is saying, I have sent all the required documents for my visa since April. CGFNS does not acknowledge receipt of my my master's transcript since last month after writing to them and a series of phone calls. They have now said they will verify signature and seal and should check within 3 weeks. 3 weeks today, and the school have not received an inquiry. What can Kinetics do to help? What advice would you suggest? Chris?
Yeah, I don't. This isn't the legal question, of course, and it is a struggle because CGFNS is the only organization. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's two organizations who can issue healthcare worker certificates. CGFNS is the visa screen, which is what people call it. My advice is instead of calling every 2 weeks, I would call every day to CGFNS. I have found that in these instances, the only thing that can be done is to continue to nag them, call, email, etc. That's the only way you're going to get a resolution. I think there's no magic. There's no backdoor number somebody can email or call, unfortunately.
Yeah, Chris, I 100% agree with that. Bashar, Kinetics USA are members of the CGFNS Alliance for Ethical Recruitment Practices. So we do have our own portal. And I know that our team will do our best to help you as much as possible. We know this can be very frustrating, whether you're waiting for the CGFNS, whether you're waiting from the NBC, the USCIS. We understand that there are delays and this can be very frustrating. And sometimes, as Chris said, it's just, you've got to just continue pinging, and it will happen. It's just a matter of time. Kala is saying hi. Red has question is, and we get this question every month, Chris, Indian nurses need to wait, or what is the situation, Chris?
Yeah, it's a very sad situation for Indian nationals. Frankly, not even just nursing, even if they're in other areas of employment-based processing. I'm looking at the most recent September visa bulletin. And India EB3 is February of 2012. India EB2 is December of 2014. Nurses generally are EB3. Some other medical and healthcare occupations, Tanya, might qualify for EB2. Notably, physical therapists would be one that springs to mind. Some advanced practice nursing as well. Either way, you're looking at a 8 to 10 year backlog, and the reality is it's probably, unfortunately, maybe even longer than that. So the short answer is there's really not much anyone can do. That is just a product of a U.S. immigration system that fails a lot of people, in particular Indian nationals. There are some legislative bills out there, and we talk about them most months, right, Tanya?
Yeah,
That
was my next. Chris, we've been doing
your next question.
My next question.
Yeah, and so we talk about them, and those are the EAGLE Act and the Healthcare Worker Resilience Act, and so there's a few of these out there, all of which have a good amount of support in the Congress. That's the nice way to put it. Unfortunately, none of them seem to have enough support in the U.S. Congress to get passed. And so I don't expect any resolution in 2022 at this point. The U.S. has presidential elections every 4 years. Of course, President Biden defeated ex-President Trump almost 2 years ago. The reason I bring that up is in the 2-year increments, which is this November, when we don't have a presidential election, we do elect about a third of the U.S. Senate and the entire U.S. House of Representatives, which is the lower house. And so the makeup of Congress often, but not always, changes in these 2-year cycles. And so, I think the next period that we'll be looking for is to see what happens in this election cycle in early November of 2022. And then the other piece of this, which is sort of related on the timeline, Tanya, is often that period between the November election and the January New Year is what we call the lame duck period here in the US, because you have a number of congressmen and senators who are finishing their term for the next 8 weeks or so before the new year is. And yet they know that they are not going to continue in that political role because they've been beaten in their election, or maybe they're retiring. And so sometimes we get unusual legislation passed during that period. So I guess what I'm saying is there's no real answer. There likely isn't an answer, but at least the next period of time when there might become an answer is November, December of this year.
Okay, so we'll watch out for that, Chris. And every month we will keep asking the question, keep hoping, keep praying, everybody. The one thing that I think does bode well, just as an overall statement, is that we have never seen such a huge demand for healthcare workers in the United States ever. I mean, Chris, you and I have been doing this for, I don't even know how many years. Have you ever seen such a massive demand?
No, that's a really good point. At this point in time, the summer of 2022, we have never, I've been doing this since 1998, so just about 25 years, and I've never had as many nursing petitions at some stage of processing, and I've never had hospitals and other U.S. healthcare facilities calling me up just begging for more U.S. healthcare workers of all stripes, in particular nurses. And so again, if we're going to try and think about this optimistically, we want to be realistic, but if we're going to think a little bit optimistically, Tanya, my sense is that there is a chance, not a guarantee, a chance in the foreseeable future that the amount of pressure on U.S. healthcare facilities for good, high qualified, overseas trained, foreign trained healthcare workers has never been greater than it is today. And that might put some pressure on the U.S. Congress to increase some of the quotas, create a nursing visa, create a healthcare visa. I don't want to promise anyone, I don't want to make, but if you're not in the queue and something like this happens, then you're going to be behind, maybe tens of thousands of people.
Yeah, correct. So if you are joining us right now and you are a healthcare worker around the world, please apply to Kinetics USA, kineticsusa.com/application. Even if you have not yet passed your NCLEX exam, we do have an NCLEX scholarship. I'll be talking a little bit more about that at the end of this call. And it really is important, as Chris said, to get in the line, because we don't know what's going to happen from an immigration perspective in the future, but we do know that right now there's a massive demand. We have opportunities from Kinetics USA side all over the United States. So if you have a sister in California, a friend in Texas, an aunt in Florida, and you or you want to go to see the Big Apple, New York, where Chris near Chris, that's where you need to apply so that we can help you, because there really is urgency to get through the process. Chris, okay, so I'm going to start taking as many questions as I can. We have a question, a lot of questions actually, asking about delays from I-140 approval to getting cases to the fee bill. We have a question here from Irvin. What happens if it's been 6 months? I still don't have my fee bill. We have a question here from Maria. My I-140 was approved early this year. I still haven't got to the NVC. Lots of those kinds of questions right now, Chris. What is happening and what are you seeing?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and it's something we're seeing with a lot of situations. So, just to bring everybody up to speed, so the process essentially is we file an I-140 here in the United States, and we file them at one or two different service centers. We don't have a choice where we file it. It's really determined upon where you're going. Which hospital you're going to, what healthcare facility you're going to geographically. And then that U.S. government service center transfers the petitions, whether it's from the Texas Service Center or any other service center, to the National Visa Center. And then the National Visa Center, as many of you are aware, puts together an opportunity for you to update some documents, pay fee bills, add spouse and children. And then the National Visa Center takes that petition and notifies your local embassy in Manila, Mumbai, Abu Dhabi, wherever around the world you are. And what we've seen in the last about 3 to 6 months is the Texas Service Center is taking an extraordinarily long time to notify the National Visa Center that the I-140 has been approved. And when we talk to the USCIS, the answer there is they're backlogged because of COVID, which seems to me to be sort of a government catch-all excuse whenever they don't do anything. I feel like, Tanya, even if you and I are doing this for another 25 years, if something goes wrong in 2045, they're still going to blame COVID, right? Yeah. You know? So, so that's the bad news. The good news is it's not something Tanya and Kinetics are doing, Chris and Masila Unkenholt are doing, not something your facility is doing, it's certainly not something you're doing. It's a system-wide problem. We are hearing some optimistic words out of the service center that they're starting to get these straightened out. We here at the law office traditionally have followed up with the service center in about 90 days if it doesn't get moved. And the reason why we did it in 90 days is because the reality is 95 to 98% of the cases did get moved timely. We've now shrunk internally down to about 60 days to do our follow-ups with the service center. That may help. I don't want to optimistically let everybody think that, but in any event, it's not about you. It's a system problem. I'm kind of optimistic that it'll get straightened out here in the next few weeks and months. But I'm sure it's frustrating. It must be frustrating. It's frustrating for us. I mean, our office and Tanya's office, we're in this line of work to provide opportunities for foreign nurses and other healthcare workers to come to the United States. We want to do that. It's how we make our living. It's in our interest to do it as quickly as possible. It's in our clients' interest. It's in your interest. And so everybody's aligned on this. It's just unfortunately the government is falling down on the job.
Yeah. And I think that's where it's confusing to many healthcare workers, because they might say, well, my friend, was filed at the same time or even filed after me, and how come they got transferred to the National Visa Center, which is understandably very confusing.
It's frustrating. Yeah, you're right. It's frustrating. First of all, your friend may have gone to the other service center, which doesn't seem to nearly have the problems. That's number one. Number two, what's even more frustrating is the Texas Service Center seems to be inconsistent. And so we will get a case that the I-140 is approved on June 1st, and that one's still sitting there, and yet we get one on July 1st, and that one goes to the National Visa Center. And there does not seem to be much consistency there, which is especially frustrating because if you and your friend are both at the Texas Service Center and your case has been filed 30 days ahead of time and was approved 30 days ahead of time, and yet your friend's case goes to the National Visa Center first, that's just, it's not fair is the reality.
Yeah. So hopefully that gives a lot of clarity to people who are experiencing this issue. It's not you, it's not the lawyers, it's not the healthcare facility, it's not Connetics. This is an issue that we're experiencing at the Texas Service Center, and there's a lot of efforts to resolve it. Just one thing for those who are watching, Kinetics nurses specifically, we work with our government affairs departments at the hospitals themselves who get their local congressmen and their senators involved. So, we've got the lawyers like Chris's team are following up, Kinetics team are following up, we ask you to follow up, and then we also have the government affairs department to follow up, and we definitely have seen encouraging results from that. So definitely positive movement. So hopefully this is going to be an issue which is a temporary one, and we're not going to see that too much going forward. Okay, we have a question from Glendon. Glendon is asking, is the Utah marriage, same-sex marriage, acceptable in the US? Chris?
Was it Utah, did he say?
Utah marriage. Yeah, same-sex marriage.
Yeah, no. Same-sex marriage in the US under US immigration is treated like any other marriage. So yeah, you should be fine. And I guess congratulations are in order.
Yeah. Congrats, Glendon. Okay, Gina is tagging a lot of her friends. Thank you for doing that, Gina. If you are watching today, please tag your friends. This is our way of paying it forward for nurses. This is free complimentary information for you on your burning immigration questions. You have one of the best legal minds in the country today who's on and is sharing insights about various questions. We're hoping Mike Hammond will still be able to join us. I know he had a technical hitch, but Chris, you are in the hot seat now. Okay, so we have a question from Aaron. Aaron, hi Aaron, I'm from the UAE. I already received my welcome letter from the NBC. Will I still be affected if there would be a retrogression? Chris?
You should enter the United States before the expiry of your document, your immigrant visa I-551 that was issued. If you have that, they're holding a visa place for you. I sometimes recommend you get in before the retrogression, not because legally it shouldn't be a problem, but because occasionally the officers are misinformed. So there's your answer.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay. We have a question about passports. I have my passport and I submitted it for the I-140 filing, but I lost it. I'm applying for a replacement. Is it okay if on the new passport I will change my name to my married name, or should it just redo it in my maiden name?
Right. So we get these kinds of questions. So it sounds like there's sort of two things going on here, right? So one is the passport was lost, and second, there's a name change consideration. Do I have that right?
Yeah, correct. Okay.
So with respect to the passport being lost, yes, no, you do need a passport to enter the United States. It doesn't matter if you get the visa approved and all of these other things. So yes, by all means, get that passport. If when you're ready to enter the United States, you have two passports or just one passport, that's okay. That won't matter. So that's the passport issue. The second issue is the name change. And what we generally recommend is whatever name you start the visa process with, you stay with that name throughout the process. If then once you're in the United States, you want to change your name, do it then. With the only exception being, if there's some personal religious reason why you want to change your name and that just takes precedent for you, then go ahead and do that. But you should over document and carry all of this paperwork with you when you enter the United States. So you should carry your old passport with the maiden name, your new passport, your educational documents that have your maiden name, importantly, your marriage certificate, importantly, the legal document in whatever country you're from that acknowledges that your name has been changed. You want to overcarry this documentation if you, for personal reasons, religious reasons, view the name change as critical to who you are. If it's not a huge issue for you, either religiously or personally, then we'd recommend for then immigration takes precedence, and then we would say try to keep your name the same. And then once you're in the U.S., it's not terribly difficult to change your name.
Okay. And if you have questions about the interview process, the consular interview process, please check out on the Kinetics USA website, our YouTube channel, our social media. We have a show called Back to Basics, which is a 3-part, Chris was on that show, a 3-part, very detailed description of everything that a healthcare worker needs to know about the EB3 process, and specifically on the consular interview side. So there is also a download that you can get from our website. This is specifically for healthcare workers and tells you everything that you need to know, how to organize your documents, what questions you can expect. So some of the things that Chris has just gone through, really important to bear in mind to be prepared when you go to your consular interview. Okay, moving on. We have a question from Carla. Carla has just found out she's pregnant. Congratulations.
Great.
She's wondering how this will affect her application and how will she be able to process her baby as an additional dependent if she were to be delivering in the UK while waiting for her US papers. Her expected due date is early March 2023. Chris?
Yeah, so as Tanya said, certainly congratulations in order. That's obviously exciting news. If I don't know where you are in your process, but if you're going to your U.S. visa interview anytime between now and the birth of the baby, and you enter the United States beforehand, then of course the baby doesn't need any documentation because it's not on its own yet. And so then you can just enter the United States. That's very straightforward. It sounds like the question, though, is what if my interview happens in, I don't know, July or something, 2, 3, 4 months after the birth of the child. The child will need their own documentation, even if they're only a month old or something like that. And so you will need to get a passport for the child. The child will need to get an I-551. You will need to pay for the immigrant visa. It's to some degree, the fact that the child is young doesn't really change the analysis. It's really no different than any other child.
Okay, so there you go, Carla. Lots of good things ahead, and thank you, Chris, for answering Carla's question. We have a question here from Alyssa. Alyssa is a medtech working on an H1 visa. And the question is, can a company legally sponsor me for a green card? I've been in the US for a while. I know the decision to sponsor a green card is up to the company, but at what point can they sponsor for a green card? She's on an H1 visa right now, Chris.
Yeah, that one's pretty easy. They can sponsor today, anytime they want.
Okay, so there's no restrictions on that.
Zero restrictions.
Yeah, and we are happy to have you in the US.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go back to the chat. Whoa, the questions are coming fast and furious. Okay, Denise is from Turkey. Welcome. Mar from Mexico. I love it when I see from people from all over the world. It's just so fun. Marin is saying, this is an interesting question. Does the consulate schedules interview appointments based on country of birth? In the monthly statistics shown in the State Department website, there's a PDF file against each month that shows the number of visas issues according to the place of birth. Chris?
Yeah, they do. I mean, this comes down to the visa bulletin that we talked about a little earlier, Tanya. So for instance, if you're an Indian national, you just won't get your visa appointment scheduled. If you're Chinese national, you probably won't get yours scheduled as well. And that's just simply because those quotas are so backlogged. Again, if your priority date is earlier than the visa bulletin dates, then you will get scheduled. So that's really the only way country of birth impacts the scheduling itself.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Okay, Safwat is saying hi. Neville is saying he loves the show. Thank you, Neville. Yusuf is watching from Nigeria, and Safwat is very frustrated with the CGFNS, Chris. Safwat, I think we've already answered this question, so I'm gonna move on to a question that we have from Trisha. Trisha is in DQ for a year now, while all other nurses got interview dates. What is the best thing to do that lawyers can do? So Trisha's been at DQ now for a year, Chris.
So what's your question? I guess I missed.
What can she do?
Yeah, she should contact her attorney to find out why she's not getting scheduled. It may be, I guess I don't know. It's pretty rare, but yeah, I guess I'd need to know more about her case, why she's not getting scheduled. But yeah. I would start with her attorney and or recruiter, and I would ask them that question. There's probably a specific reason rather than some sort of general reason.
Yeah. So Trisha, please go ahead and do that if you've not already done so. The other thing, as I mentioned, once we understand what it is that is the issue, there also is the avenue of going through the government affairs department at the healthcare facilities, and when there have been isolated incidents, as well as like a bigger issue like what we've seen, the delays moving cases from the I-140 approvals to the NVC, we definitely have seen positive results for that. We have a question from Princess. What can be the reasons for a denial at the USCIS, Chris?
Oh, there can be a million reasons. That's a very specific question. Just to pick a few general concepts, though, it could be about the nurse. Maybe your education is insufficient. Maybe you haven't passed the NCLEX examination. It could be about your employer. Maybe they are a smaller employer and they don't have a good financial position. It could be about the notification that went to the U.S. nurses. Part of the process that you guys don't normally see, you nurses don't normally see, but one of the processes that the attorneys do is they put together notification to the U.S. nurses, and there's some very peculiar guidelines that have to be done on those. And so maybe that notification was not done correctly. Those are at least some of the reasons. But again, there's almost a million reasons. If I said to a nurse, what are reasons a patient could get sick? There's almost a number of answers, right?
I got it, Chris. Okay, so and what percentage? I mean, maybe we shouldn't even ask this question, but how often does that happen? I mean, we don't see that happen very often.
It doesn't happen very often. In fact, one other reason that I didn't say that might be the most common reason, Tanya, is the U.S. government makes an error.
Yeah.
And then we have to either reopen the case, or sometimes we decide it's just not worth the effort to reopen it because the U.S. government is confused on the issue. And so if we just refile the case, we'll get maybe a more experienced officer. So there's really multiple reasons why it could happen.
Okay.
I like that sick analogy, though. I should use that more often.
Yeah. Good one, Chris. Okay. So Mohammed from Nigeria is saying, thank you for the update. Mohammed, we know that this is a very confusing, frustrating, long process. So that's where, if you have your questions, please put them into the chat. I'll try to get through as many as possible. It is very, very, very stressful to go through this immigration process. And that's why we are so grateful to Chris. It looks like Mike is not going to be able to join us today. I know he had some technical hitch, but we're so grateful to Chris and the immigration lawyers that specialize in healthcare that join us once a month to go through your questions and really give you hopefully some peace of mind, some insight, some knowledge about how to navigate this difficult system, this difficult process. Ma has a question about the timeline. How long does it take from the USCIS to get to the Department of State, Chris?
Yeah, so that's a little bit like we were talking before. It comes down to what should happen is we should see the fee bills in about a month or two. But the reality is right now we're seeing enormous delays for cases coming out of the Texas Service Center, where the Texas Service Center seems to not be communicating and moving the cases well to the National Visa Center. So, what we're doing internally is if we don't see that move happen within 60 days, we're following up. That's our rule of thumb we're using. Again, we used to take longer because, frankly, because it generally wasn't much of a problem. But yeah, I would say under normal circumstances, anything beyond 60 days or so is unusual.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. So we have a question here from January who's saying, I'm about to get my I-140 filed this week, hopefully. How long before you think I will be in the United States?
Well, if you're an Indian national, it'll be about 12 years, unfortunately.
I don't think she's Indian.
If you're from anywhere else other than China, I don't think it's unrealistic to say sometime in 2023, probably, summer, fall of 2023, assuming your I-140 is being filed August 19th here. We'll really know a lot more in about 30 days when the U.S. government releases the October visa bulletin. The reason why that one is important is because that's the U.S. fiscal year for reasons that aren't worth worrying about. In fact, I'm not even sure I know why. The U.S. fiscal year runs October 1st to September 30th. It does not run January 1st to December 31st like most things around the world. As a result of that, the quotas for the next fiscal year will start October 1st. Those numbers will be reflected on the visa bulletin that comes out in mid to late September. And so that first visa bulletin of the fiscal year gives us a good indication as to what the visa bulletins are going to look like for the next 11 months. So we will be a lot smarter come that date in mid-September.
Okay. And that kind of relates to Ricardo's question, who's asking, good morning, will there be a spillover of visas to the employment-based visa category for the next year?
Well, I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Will there be a spillover of visa to the employment?
Oh, yeah. So so that's a good question that you asked. So that's sort of related to the last answer I gave. Sorry, I missed the word spillover. Yeah. So the spillover is when the U.S. government doesn't use all of the visas in the prior fiscal year, they spill over into the subsequent fiscal year. And that's why the September visa bulletin is so important to us, because that will be the one that will tell us just how long or really give us an insight as to how much the spillover was.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So stay tuned, everybody, and hopefully we'll have an answer for you on that question in the coming weeks. Saad has a question. My question is, I've sent my ASCP MLS license twice, and it's not showing meets all program requirements on my dashboard for visa screen like my colleague. I thought Kinetics added as agent will assist in rectifying small issues, but in vain. What help will Kinetics offer since CGFNS is not efficient? Saad, it's a very specific question, and I'm not sure of the specifics of your case. I will make sure that our allied team get in touch with you to see how we can help you. I write is asking, oh, this is interesting. What is best to have your interview in Riyadh, Saudi, or in the Philippines? Because as of now, Riyadh is giving IDs in a slow pace as compared to the Philippines. Chris, what are you seeing in terms of the different consulates around the world?
Yeah, so I tend to give the same answer with this, Tanya, is that these timelines tend to change quite a bit, and often with very little notification. So for instance, maybe today Manila is moving faster than, I forget what they said, Abu Dhabi perhaps. But tomorrow, the officer who's running Manila cases might get transferred to London, England. And then all of a sudden the Manila cases slow down. And the Abu Dhabi they may work through their backlog, and all of a sudden they're quicker. So I think this idea of trying to pick an embassy based on their speed today is a bad decision. I also think switching your case to another embassy is almost always a bad decision, in particular if you think you're going to get your visa faster. That's not a good idea, I think. And so my advice is, wherever is going to be most convenient for you geographically, whether it's presumably overseas, you're working overseas in a place like the Gulf countries, or you maybe want to go home at some point and spend some time in the Philippines before you come to the U.S. Make your decision on your appointment based on that. Don't be fooled into thinking that today, because Manila is a little faster than Abu Dhabi, that I should go to Manila, because by the time you get your case, the reverse could be true.
Yeah, it's so difficult to be able to predict these things. I know that nurses want to get to the US as quickly as possible, but it's so difficult to predict. So I think that's really valuable advice, Chris, is really pick where's most convenient and stick with that. Don't try and jump around and try and, navigate the system in a way that is actually probably going to hurt you in the long term.
Yeah.
From a timing perspective. Chris, Dorothy has a question. Can I add the kids of my husband from his first marriage on my petition?
Yes, assuming that your husband, assuming that the kids are under 21.
Okay. Peter is asking, why is adding my spouse taking long now?
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't even know what stage in the process she is. That's probably a question to direct to her attorney or the hospital or the recruiter. They can probably give her some specific reasons. It could be that you haven't given the attorney or the recruiter all the documents. It could be that the attorney has given the documents to the U.S. government and that they can't get it. It could be that the attorney is dragging their feet. I mean, it could be almost any reason.
Yeah. So, okay. So we got some clarity on that question because there could be a lot of reasons. Okay. We have a question here from Mary J. My dependent spouse has a history of absence without leave from his career as a policeman. Will this have a risk in the immigration application of when I do my application if it comes out at the consulate interview?
So you cut out a little bit the first maybe 2 or 3 sentences. So I missed sort of what the issue was. I hear that the spouse is a policeman, but I wasn't sure why they thought that was significant.
Yes. So the spouse has a history of absence without leave from his career as a policeman.
Absence without leave. Okay.
Yeah. So I think the nurse is worried, will this come out at the consulate interview and will that affect her case?
So the short answer is no. The longer answer is if the absence without leave was for a significant criminal reason, perhaps. What I would suggest that this person does, Tanya, is that they email and talk to their attorney, and I would be truthful with the attorney as to sort of what happened here. Why did the spouse leave? Was it just simply, usually there's a reason. Was he injured on the job? Did he fulfill a contract that he finished and he didn't want to continue? Or maybe even, maybe he just was tired of the job and didn't want to work it anymore. Or there was maybe a more significant reason. But whatever it is, this could be significant. So let your attorney know. My guess is it's probably not significant, but it's specific enough that I would definitely talk to the attorney who's handling the case to really get a specific answer.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Janelle has a question. I'm a medtech working in the US on an H1 visa. My hospital will sponsor my green card soon. At what point in the process can I let my visa screen expire?
Not until you get the green card. You need to have the green card in hand before you let that. If not, if you don't have the green card, you unfortunately need to extend the visa screen.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Okay, so moving back to the chat, I'm like literally my head is spinning here, Chris, because I've got I'm like trying to see what we've already covered. I've got pages and pages in front of me. Okay. I'm getting dizzy. Okay, Ezzy we've already answered this question, Ezzy, so thank you for posting that. Okay, Justina has a question. Hi, Tanya, please, if one's case was approved for expedite process from the NBC to the embassy, and the CAC status says ready for interview when scheduled at the US consulate, how long is the embassy likely to schedule the interview or contact the applicant to schedule the interview?
Quickly, if I followed the question. I mean, it sounds like she's very close to the finish line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good news, Justina.
Yeah, that sounds like very good news.
Yeah, good. Maria is asking, is there a waiting period for Caribbean nurses related to immigration? And what is the average waiting period for such? So my understanding, Chris, from what you explained is that it's only Indian and Chinese born nurses that would have a delay, not anybody born from the Caribbean, correct?
That's right. There's no problem for the Caribbean. That's right.
Okay, so there you go, Maria. Okay, RJ, why some are saying that we still need to request the latest police clearance from the Philippines, even if we've been living here in Canada since 2009. Please enlighten us about police clearances. Oh, this is a good question, Chris. We get this often. Can you clarify where people need to get the police clearances from?
So candidly, I can't. And it's unfortunately because it's been a little while since I've looked into this issue. And it is country specific, which is the key reason why I can't. And so each country has a different process outlined, and it's all available on the U.S. Department of State site. But if this person is a client of our firm, go ahead and email me or email the lawyer or paralegal on it, and we'll give you the specific answer for a specific question. But I'm hesitant, Tanya, to speak off the cuff as to particularly, even the Philippine one, I don't know off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Okay, so it's very specific, RJ. Go ahead and email, and either from the Kinetics team or from the Merceda team, we'll do our best to help you on the specifics of that question. Radhika is saying, I can apply. Great. Anna is saying, hi, Kinetics. Ojekchi, I hope I've got that right, is watching from Nigeria. I'm a registered nurse, already have my IELTS. Congratulations. Just applied this morning. I want to know if I'm eligible. So Ajechi, yes, if you are a registered nurse, you are definitely eligible, and congrats on getting your IELTS, because that can be one of the biggest hurdles. In order to file an application, an I-140 petition, you will have to have passed your NCLEX exam. So please go ahead and apply, and our team will see if you are eligible for the Kinetics Scholarship, kineticsusa.com/application. Even if you are not eligible for the scholarship, as soon as you've passed the NCLEX, let us know, and we'd be happy to have you interview with one of the many clients around the United States that are looking for international nurses and healthcare workers. Okay, Chester has a question. My license endorsement to New York has been taking for ages. Yeah, we know that New York as well is very backed up, and my medical will soon expire. I was thinking if ever I will be given an immigrant visa, can I use a closer U.S. territory or state like Puerto Rico or Hawaii as my port of entry just to obtain the green card, exit back to the home country until I get my New York license? Chris?
Yeah, so the answer is yes. Having said that, I wouldn't do that on your own. You want to make sure you're talking to your recruiter, your attorney, and your employer to make sure that everyone is on the same page on the strategy. For instance, your employer may know someone at the New York State Board of Nursing that can make sure that your nursing license gets done quicker than you think. So again, just to summarize, you can do that. And in fact, Tanya, you and I occasionally will recommend people do something like that. But just loop everybody in. Don't do it on your own.
Yeah, always ask for expert advice. Fiona's watching from Dubai. And please, everybody, see that we have a link in the chat for our EB3 green card process. This is a free EB3 guidebook. This is for you and tells you everything that you need to know about the EB3 consular process. You can watch the videos on our website, on our YouTube channel, on our social media. And if you are like Alyssa, who's a med tech and doing an adjustment of status green card, we have a video as well as a guidebook for you. If you're a Canadian coming on the TN visa, we have a video and a guidebook for you as well. So use this. This is free information, and tag your friends so that we can, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. And it's really important to educate yourself and empower yourself with that knowledge. Okay, James is saying hi. Rommel is saying hi. Ali is saying if anyone connected with you guys trying to make attempt at the NCLEX. Yes, Ali, go ahead, take the NCLEX. Really important to do that. Ojiki is asking about nurse assistants. Yes, we have a nurse aid program. Denise is asking about the fastest board. I think you're asking there to apply to. So Denise, usually we will see nurses apply to Texas, Illinois and New York. I think New York is a little more expensive. Illinois and Texas seem to be a little bit more expensive, but a bit faster. Okay. Oh my goodness, Chris. So many questions here. Okay. Question here from Peter. How long does it take for the actual green card to be mailed to you? I have arrived in the United States with my family and I haven't got my actual green card yet. I'm worried. We don't want Peter to worry.
Yeah, we don't want Peter to worry. I mean, I've seen it take as long as about 6, maybe even 8 weeks. That's probably the longest before we start to get concerned. Anything before that, not that unusual.
Okay. So please don't worry, Peter. You are here in the US. Let's celebrate that moment, and hopefully you will get that soon. Okay, Daniel has a question. Why do we sometimes receive a notice like this? Notice was returned to USCIS because the post office could not deliver it. Would this delay the I-140 approval? Chris?
What wasn't be able to deliver to cut out?
Notice was returned. Notice was returned to the USCIS because the post office could not deliver it. I don't know if it's a notice.
I'm not sure that's a very specific thing. I would definitely say to just simply, your attorney should be able to answer that very quickly.
Yeah.
That would be very difficult.
Yeah, it sounds to me like it's an I-140 approval, Daniel. I'm sorry, we don't know on that specifics. Joselita is asking, how does the CSPA works? Is it automatic or you have to apply for it if your dependent is going to age out? The I-140 is approved, waiting for embassy interview at the Philippines embassy appointment is difficult to get. How does the CSPA, what is the CSPA?
Sure, so the CSPA is the Child Status Protection Act. The idea here, first of all, this only really applies if you have a child who's maybe 19, 20, pushing 21 years old. Those are the only people that are impacted by this. And essentially, the CSPA says that first, if your child is over 21 at the time you go to your visa appointment, the child will not be issued a visa. That's sort of standard immigration rules, which is why, it's particularly important, Tanya, that if you're thinking of coming to the U.S. and you have a teenage child and you would like that child to come with you, then let's get working on our NCLEX. Let's get recruited by Kinetics. Let's get into the system. You don't want to get close to that 21st birthday. Once the child turns 21, then the child doesn't qualify as your derivative, and there's nothing they can do about it, and they're going to have to stay back in the Philippines or wherever they are. So that's number one. But what the CSPA says is the duration that the I-140 is pending, we can sort of add to the child's age. So for argument's sake, if the I-140 took 4 months to get approved, then the child can be 21 and 4 months at the time of that visa interview. Specifically answering one last point, which is don't think you're going to figure all this out yourself. This is why you have attorneys that can walk you through it. Number one. Number two, in terms of the specific question, which is, do you have to apply for anything? You don't. But it sometimes is helpful to have a little short memo or brief included with the petition if the case is confusing. And so we handle that on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you, Chris. So, I mean, it's really a mathematical calculation, correct? And not something that you can do yourself, Joselita. So I'm glad you're educating yourself about that. So that's good. But you're really going to have to consult with the lawyers to try and figure out in terms of your specific case. Chris, we have a question from Victoria. If I am intermarried with a different race or nationality, do I need to register the marriage in both birth countries of the parties?
No, you just need a marriage that is valid or legal in the country that you got married in.
Okay. Chineza has a question. Do I have to worry if my offer letter does not bear my middle name? I don't think so.
Probably not. We like probably not.
And then there's a
You certainly don't have to worry. There's nothing legally that says you have to worry. So I can answer that one definitively.
Yeah. Okay. Is age declaration affidavit accepted for the I-140 and the NVC stage?
So there's no such thing as an age declaration.
Yeah.
There is such thing as affidavits or declarations that discuss birth in a country where birth certificates were not common at the time that the individual was born. This also falls under and the answer to that is sometimes yes. If you were born in a country and you were born years ago and it was uncommon for birth certificates to be issued, we will put together a series of affidavits for you. Having said that, that's less frequent than it was when I started out, frankly, because most countries do issue birth certificates now. And that is, that's something you definitely want to address with your attorney if you don't have a birth certificate.
Okay. All right. So we are almost at the hour. So I think I'm going to take like one or two more questions. And Jenilyn is saying, once I'm in the US, can I petition for a fiance visa, Chris? And how does that work?
So no, you cannot petition for a fiance visa. So that's easy, unless you're a US citizen. Accordingly, what we will usually recommend is if you are thinking of getting married, you will want to think faster and marry before you go for your green card. If you do not go for your green card, then you will not be eligible for a fiance visa until you're a U.S. citizen, which will be 5 years. There will be another quicker way, which is called filing an I-130 on behalf of your spouse, but that could take another year or two, maybe longer, depending on the country. All of which, again, is a long way of saying that if you're thinking of marrying and you've been in a committed traditional dating relationship for some time, my recommendation is you may want to consider getting married, and of course talk to the attorney about that, because the attorney is going to want to frame the case in a way that it doesn't look like it was a fraudulent marriage, which would of course be fatal to your U.S. immigration petition. Okay.
So that gives a lot of food for thought on that question for Jenilyn. Razama says, hi ma'am, I'm from India, EB3. I submitted my DS-260 on the 22nd of June, waiting to be documentary qualified soon. My eldest son, this is about the son. My eldest son is 21 on April 23rd, 8 months left. Is it a valid reason for requesting an expedite? If yes, when should it be done?
I sort of missed the facts. In terms of an expedite, there's almost an expedite at what stage of the process? I kind of missed the facts.
So she's waiting to be DQ. So
she can try to expedite. She can not try to expedite. We don't really see the expedite having that much success, is the reality. So you can go ahead and try it. Again, I would don't do it yourself though. This is one constant theme, I think, Tanya, that's very important. Is please, like it. We often see where cases get into trouble where the nurse thinks she's helping her own case. And what she doesn't know is that there may be something going on behind the scenes that the attorney's doing. And if the embassy gets two different requests on the same case, that actually, so let's pretend you think you want to go ahead and expedite and you're going to go out on your own and expedite the case. Meanwhile, your attorney's already been doing that. Well, once they get the second expedite, they may cancel the first expedite. And so you thought you were helping your case and you actually hurt your case. And so the number one thing on these kinds of situations is please bring everybody into the loop. Do not think you're helping your case by going out on your own. And there's very little cost and time to including everybody in on the conversation. So that would be my number one piece of advice on any of these expedite type questions. With your specific case, it sounds like your facts may warrant an expedite, but don't be mistaken to think that just because you request an expedite, they're going to move your case to the top of the stack, because the reality is almost everybody would do it then, in which case, if everybody's expedited, nobody's expedited.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Two more questions. We have one from Francis. Oh, this is not actually immigration. Franz, I'd like to ask regarding the license endorsement. I have my USRN from New York, then got hired from Maryland State. I believe that is one of the requirements of Maryland State is Social Security number. So Francis, you would have from Kinetics USA a case specialist who will help you to navigate that process of how to do the endorsement, especially if you need Social Security, and you obviously need a green card to get Social Security. So it can be a little bit of a dance, but we know how to help you to navigate that. Okay, so one last question here that we have from Earl. Earl is asking, I signed a petition with an employer in the United States, and I think I made a mistake. When I come to the United States, is there any implication if I breach my commitment?
Yes, this is something you should unquestionably not do. So you should not do this. If you signed a contract and you go to a visa interview knowing that you're not going to fulfill that contract, you are engaging in visa fraud, which could be subject to a 10-year bar from entry into the United States. This is not something to be taken lightly. If you are early enough in the process, you may want to talk. First of all, you may want to be asking yourself, why do I think that you made a mistake? There may be some good reasons. Maybe the employer keeps not responding to you. Maybe the employer is asking you for money, or the recruiter is asking you for money. Those might be good reasons. What's not a good reason is you signed the contract, the employer or the recruiter put a lot of time working with you. They said you were going to work in Chicago. You said you would work in Chicago, and now you've decided you'd rather live in Los Angeles. That's not a very good reason. But breaching the contract from an immigration standpoint can rise to immigration fraud. And so we definitely do not recommend that. Breaching the contract even after you enter the United States could give rise to visa fraud. And so we don't recommend that. Having said that, no one should be in a situation where they don't, but it's not a question of just not liking. There has to be some sort of bad behavior on behalf of the employer. And at that point, you're going to want to talk to an attorney. But Tanya, I got to be honest, this is something that I don't think there's much subtlety to, which is that, breaching these contracts for, because the employer across the street offered me another $5 an hour. That's probably a very good decision for you in the moment, but really a very bad decision for you from a legal perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I think it is something, this is a very serious issue and something not to be taken lightly, as Chris said, both from an immigration perspective as well as from a financial perspective, because you're going to have a big breach clause that has a financial obligation that you might have to pay back to that employer, and also from just an ethical and a professional perspective. So I definitely would encourage everybody to think of anything that you are signing as if it's a marriage. It's a commitment. And you got to think very carefully. Don't just sign something that you don't understand. You need to make sure that you understand and you've done your homework, you've done your research, that this is a good offer, that you are happy with the offer. And the employer most times is going into this with good faith. They want to, change your life and bring you to the United States and help you defray some of those expenses by paying for certain things like the immigration costs. But this is really something not to be taken lightly at all and has serious immigration and financial implications. Okay, we are at the hour. Thank you so much, Chris. It was just the two of us today and you got through it like a superstar. I'm so sorry to everybody whose questions I didn't get to. And we will try to get through as many questions as we can next month when the expert legal team or the expert legal person for today, Chris, is here. And I'd like to just remind everybody about the upcoming shows. So we have our upcoming shows. Next week, we are doing a very interesting show on the cost of living in the United States. Most healthcare workers don't realize that there are different states at different cost of living and what the implications are of that. On September 2nd, we are navigating the RN employment benefits in the United States. How do benefits work? very confusing for many Americans, so important to educate yourself about that. Number 9, September 9th is buying a home in the United States. This is living the American dream. On September 16th, Chris and the panel will be back with immigration Q&A. On the 20th, we have the Lafora talk show where we're talking about clinical differences in the ED as opposed to in the US as opposed to working overseas. And then on the 23rd, we have stateside back. We will be talking about a specific state. Also, the Kinetics College. We have every Monday, we have the Kinetics College. So this is free information. If you are still going through the NCLEX process, the IELTS process, on the 22nd, we have Niners who will have an OET class. On the 5th of September, we have an NCLEX class by Aspire. On the 12th of September, we have an IELTS class through Swoosh. On the 19th, we have an NCLEX class with Rachel from iPass, and Niners will be back on the 26th talking about the difference between IELTS, OET, and Pearson PTE. And Kinetics initiatives, don't forget, Kinetics have a free IELTS and OET or Pearson PTE scholarship for all Kinetics nurses. This is a free review course. We have a free NCLEX scholarship for selected nurses. Our referral fee is back by popular demand until the end of this month. Listen to our podcast, Nursing in America. We have a nurse aid program, our Friday show, Onwards and Upwards, Kinetics College every Monday, and we also have many allied needs. So thank you for joining us, everybody. Thank you for joining us, Chris. Onwards and upwards, and see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.